Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello, everybody. It's a real pleasure to have you here this morning. I'll do my presentation in French, but you have earphones for interpretation into English, French, and Spanish. Please feel free to get some headsets if you need it. We are here at the MAM, which is a former print factory that was shut down in the 50s and renovated in 2010. And today, we can welcome that type of event and enjoy this environment, this pretty special environment for our talks. We're here gathered in the framework of this European Neolaya Symposium, gathering 9 universities that are quite alike. They are young universities that were created between the 70s and the 90s of the last century. They are settled in medium-sized cities. And today, our universities and region are collaborating, trying to develop more collaboration for research, for teaching, but more largely for all aspects of the university. And this is the very purpose of NAIA that received actually a label a year and a half ago. Our project started about almost a year ago for a duration of 4 years, and this project does entail a part on plurilingualism. In order to have a unified Europe, also taking into account diversity, we'll work on plurilingualism because we know how much language does relate to our culture. I'd like to thank Marisha, who's the leader of the working group, the plurilingualism working group. Thank you very much for all the good work we've been carried out in the past 3 years. I'd like also to thank Véronique Castellotti, Léa Courteau, and Marc de Bonneau, who are the scientific coordinators of this event. And without no further ado, I'll give her the floor. Thank you very much and enjoy this day.
Bueno, señora vicerrectora de Relaciones Internacionales, miembros del comité organizador, queridos ponentes, asistentes, compañeros, amigos todos, buenos días. En nombre del paquete de trabajo 7 de la Alianza de Universidades Europeas Neolaya, es un honor académico y un privilegio personal darles la bienvenida a nuestro primer simposio internacional sobre política lingüística. Et je voudrais tout d'abord remercier le comité scientifique d'avoir eu la gentillesse de m'inviter à cette table d'ouverture. Et surtout, je voudrais le féliciter vivement pour la magnifique organisation de cet événement, qui est notre premier jalon dans le Work Package. You know, when we were conceptualizing this milestone while writing up our Work Package, never could we have imagined that it would come to life so beautifully, so enrichingly, and so vibrantly. The Université de Tours team has truly taken it to new heights, and it is an honor to be a direct witness of the success of this symposium. Because within it, in the next 2 days, a truly unique set of participants of great stature will come together to discuss one of the key topics of our academic age: plurilingual and intercultural language policy. Indeed, I cannot think of a topic that is more alluring or more timely, because we currently find ourselves at a true crossroads in tertiary language education. After nearly 3 decades of implementation on our continent, bi and plurilingual education is moving in exciting new directions and tossing quite a few challenges our way, such as accommodating the global citizenship agenda, ensuring SDG 4, promoting internationalization, or stepping up to the challenges posed by linguistic and cultural diversity. And this is precisely the remit of our symposium. And I have to tell you, if you're interested in discussing these topics from a rich and multifaceted perspective, you have come to the right place, because the young and dynamic Université de Tours has invariably evinced an unwavering commitment to internationalization and to plurilingual education. But you're not only in the right place, you're also with the right people. Because just as CLIL and EMI are considered to be plain old good teaching, CLILers and EMIers are essentially plain old good people. And it is a joy to belong to this close-knit, vibrant community of movers and shakers who today come together at our symposium. Over 150 distinguished academics from our 9 Neolaya universities and beyond will pool their invaluable insights from a multi-pronged perspective. And we are touched by the privilege of having amongst us speakers whose work we follow, read, cite, and admire here in person at the symposium. And we hope you will enjoy the different plenaries, roundtables, and interviews that will shape our common experience in the coming days, together with the exciting social program, delicious French cuisine, and very special Tours hospitality. And all this has been thanks to the right support, relentless support, which has come from different flanks and for which we are deeply grateful. A very special thank you to our Work Package 7 delegates, or should I say, our Work Package 7 Dream Team. Your dedicated work, your committed, continued involvement, and especially your passion and energy have set the highest possible standards for our work package and are making its development the most memorable of experiences. It is also impossible not to mention the Université de Tours without a deep sense of gratitude and admiration. UT is not only an efficient, driven, and insightful institution, which has been a true reference point in language-related issues in our alliance from the very outset, but it's also a true source of camaraderie and friendship. So our heartfelt thanks to the Université for its know-how, guidance, and very personal brand of leadership, which have been pivotal to guarantee the success of this symposium. And finally, thank you to our speakers and attendees, because you are the true cornerstone of Neolaya. C'est un vrai plaisir de partager avec vous ces 3 jours d'apprentissage intense. Welcome to our Neolaya family. Welcome to Tours, and enjoy the first International Symposium on Language Policy. Muchas gracias.
So we'll speak in French, so you can use the headphone for the translation in it.
I'm going to speak in French, so you can use the headphones. Hello, everybody. We're very happy to welcome you for this symposium that is a result of a huge collective work within this university package set, gathering several European universities. Thank you to all of you for the great effort. Thank you to the colleagues involved in this work package, to the colleagues of these 9 partners universities that are also present this morning. Thank you, Maria Luiso, Mr. Canado, and to the partners as well. To Sofia Sadikaklin for the Association for the Plurilingual Development work, and also the different participants for the roundtables. Also to the Neolaya Bureau, to Céline Baudin and Benjamin Delard, also to the technical team, Jean-Philippe Le Tourneur and Benoît Gartier. A big thank you to the interpreters that will be ensuring the interpretation in 3 different languages. And thank you to Candy Madeleine, that is for now, that has so far helping us a great deal. In order to introduce this symposium, well, recently I read in a dissertation report that the examiners asked the student to consider the idea of decolonization when thinking about intercultural studies. And what he meant here was that to open the scope of the research work, and in the same time was asked to publish the dissertation in English for better dissemination. So that this seems to me a good illustration of the problem we're facing. We could consider that diversity and the way we understand the world goes through plurilingualism. So the question that is being asked to all universities that would like to set up some linguistic policies in a serious manner, which seems to be the purpose of Neolaya, the question is the following: can the promotion of a real diversity of ways of doing university research in higher education, which decolonial thinker call for through strong ideas, putting an end to epistemicide and coloniality of knowledge, be achieved through support for this diversity of way of thinking about research and teaching in a single language? Or should we instead promote multilingualism in higher education that would guarantee scientific interculturality? So the question is not a new one, but I would say that we would have to pause the question again and try to find a balance between partners and the maintenance of an epistemic diversity that goes through different languages. Language is not only a communication tool, even though educational European policies have been mentioning them in that manner. And I would say that the habits today will have to be discussed by the participants in the roundtable discussion that follows, talking about the Englishization in higher education and the presence of English and its diversity of its uses.
The perspective here is not just yet another defense to defend and illustrate the usefulness of the French language. The NADIV research team, which is our research team, which is to represent the diversity of languages at the University of Tulsa, and they were involved in organizing this conference, is a team of sociologists and language didacticians, disciplines which have been largely built up against a national language policy which is considered to be very monolingual and that overwhelms and crushes out cultural diversity. So it's got nothing to do with defending one's national language in what we would like to promote through the symposium. The idea is rather to ask ourselves collectively the question as to what place its alliance and its language policy gives to the language of the various partners: Lithuanian, Czech, German, Romanian, Spanish, French, Swedish, Greek, Cypriot, Italian, and of course all the other languages that are part of the remit of the alliance. And so we would like to see what is the relationship of power between the languages, as well as to formulate a hope that translation will become a common practice at future Neolaya events, and that it will be translation that will be the language of Europe, to quote Eco. And once again, a big thanks to our team of interpreters. languages. So what are we expecting of this symposium in terms of concrete results? So firstly, we're aware that there is a great diversity of contexts and that the solutions proposed by the Charter, for example, cannot be the same ones applied everywhere. Lithuania is not Germany, Cyprus is not Sweden, etc. Of course, it's an obvious thing to say, but depending on the languages at stake, whether it be the central languages or the smaller languages, not all universities or politics have the same policies. But yet, what we want to achieve is clear. We'd like to see what is the outlook for plurilingual approach and how does this approach in the remit of universities. How do we maintain epistemic diversity? And this entails using various languages so that the internationalization of universities does not mean that we need to sell our spirits in the field of education and research. And I'm going to hand over the floor now to Véronique, my colleague, for the continuation of this introduction. So this is a joint speech that we are giving between the three of us. And so I would like to focus more specifically on the outlook for pluri or multilingualism. This is the topic we'll be speaking about throughout the symposium, along with other colleagues. Colleagues who, most of them are present here today and who have been working on this issue for the last 30 years. And some of them are trying to implement this approach in their various universities, raising awareness and providing training to their students. So in advance, I'd like to just remind you a couple of elements that are probably obvious to you. But in light of the diversity of the partners here today at the symposium, we felt that it would be useful to remind all of us in terms of what lies behind the expression, an expression which comes with different definitions. And so you have different types of multilingualism or plurilingualism, and sometimes what is felt to be one multilingual can cover another type of multilingual. So there are 2 points. We make a distinction between a multilingual and plurilingual. And then I'd also like to speak about the challenges when it comes to acquiring this plurilingual skill. So until recently, in English, there was only one term. They spoke about multilingual to refer to the coexistence of several languages. Whereas in French, we make the distinction, and for a long time now, and I think you have the same distinction in other languages, between multilingual and plurilingual. And this is a common distinction which considers territories as multilinguals and individuals as plurilingual. However, since the concept of plurilingual competence has been developed, this difference also pertains to another aspect. Multilingualism is now used to refer to the fact of accumulating and juxtaposing different languages, languages which are considered to be separated, whereas plurilingualism refers to uses consisting of mobilizing diversified language resources depending on the situation, without necessarily separating them. So in recent years, there's been a certain number of English-speaking studies, notably in Canada. So Angelica Galante, who will talk to us tomorrow, will tell you more about this, have adopted the term plurilingual. Plurilingual in contrast to the term of multilingualism or multilingual. And there's also the term translanguaging, which, despite sharing some of the same characteristics, in my opinion, refers to a partly different imaginary of languages and their appropriation. So why am I insisting on this? It's because of the notion of plurilingual competencies, as defined in 1997 by Daniel Coste, Daniel Moore, and Geneviève Zarat. And it's since been reviewed and worked upon by a certain number of other colleagues. So first of all, what are we referring to? It's about observing and transforming an experience which could be described as ordinary, an experience that all bilinguals or plurilinguals experience. So you probably, for the most of you, know what Shanna Poplack wrote about. She was a theorist of code switching, and she says, sometimes I start a sentence in English y termino en español. So it's about taking this experience and transforming it into a skill by recognizing it, by developing it, and including through education and training. So it's not just about the experience of code switching, of course, but the experience of living, of learning, of working with and in several languages without compartmentalizing them. So this plurilingual competency, as defined by the original authors, is partial. It has been more or less developed in oral or written expression. It is composite. It includes languages and varieties of different statuses. It's unbalanced. It has varying degrees depending on the resources, and it is scalable. It evolves over time and it evolves over space. It's characterized by the integrated use of a set of non-disjointed resources from a variety of origins, depending on the person, the situation, the story, and the project. And so it's on the basis of this notion that since the turn of the century, since the 2000s, the Council of Europe's recommendations have been developed for the development of plurilingual and intercultural education, leading to a number of educational initiatives in Europe, and mainly in primary and secondary schools. Laurent Gaillot and Pacharatya Prasad will be giving a speech this afternoon whereby they will be look at this issue and more specifically as it applies to higher education by examining aspects of multilingual and intercultural internationalization on the principle of economy versus the principle of mutual understanding or intercomprehension. And the roundtable that will follow will then bring together several colleagues, and these colleagues will speak about plurilingual and intercultural perspectives, or the outlook. Together, we can also imagine other ways of teaching and learning in the field of higher education by diversifying both linguistic resources as well as teaching and learning methods in line with a language policy that is not pluri-monolingual, but rather both plurilingual and intercultural. So now I'm going to hand the floor to Leah. So for us, via the symposium, we wanted us to all think about ways in which we can practice into our teaching and scientific and educational methods the multilingual and intercultural perspectives that Mark and Veronique just spoke about. If we are to remind you of why we're interested in linguistic and cultural issues in the field of higher education and research, I would start by recalling what Mark said in his words of introduction. Languages, as we know, are far from being just tools for communication. They are also imaginary worlds linked to historical and cultural traditions, places where thought can unfold and encounters with others can take place. Linguistic and cultural otherness, alterity, can be found wherever we are willing to accept it, as long as we do not seek to erase it in the hope of making our activities more practical or easy. Those practices being teaching, understanding, studying, engaging in research dialogue. But there are limitations, there are constraints, of course. And the question now is to know, how can we take advantage of these constraints? How can we take them on board to do things differently with them? So years of research into plurilingualism in the field of education have largely opened up perspectives for taking such directions, as Veronique just said in her introduction. And we will have several opportunities to hear from colleagues talking about this during the course of the symposium with a view to integrating the situation into university situations in many different geographical and linguistic contexts. So as not to risk a crushing or deletion of linguistic and cultural diversity, which would be a negative to our ways of experiencing teaching and research in Europe. So today we would like to take advantage of this opportunity to take note of the extent to which, and I quote Stefan et al., who said, the plurilingual dimension introduces the question of the plurality of perspective linked to languages, cultural, and research traditions, but also that of the diversification of linguistic means and ways of verbalizing research content and putting scientific concepts into discourse. So to reflect on all of this, during the third part of the symposium, we will be hearing from Angelica Galante, entitled Power, Language and Equity, Reimagining Plurilingualism in Universities. And Angelica Galante will take us to the other side of the Atlantic, not only geographically speaking, but also from a historical perspective. And of course, in other forms of relationships to university teaching and with other approaches to knowledge, perhaps. This will be followed by a roundtable discussion in which participants will be sharing ideas and experience with the aim of showing that university teaching can be done through what we might call the mobilization of linguistic and cultural plurality. So one example among others will be that of a historical teaching program in English in which the role of languages in the development of concepts and historical writings will be highlighted. And at the end of these 3.5 days of reflection, the time will come to draw up our proposals and recommendations that will be encompassed in a language policy charter. This will take into account the diversity of sociolinguistic situations and existing disciplinary and educational traditions. It won't be about proposing best practices that can be transferable to all situations, a type of one-size-fits-all, but rather about putting forward points for reflection on ways of balancing the scales, which means making use of the languages present and being able to grasp English without limiting oneself to speaking one single language. The discussions and examples shared will provide fertile grounds for these proposals, which are intended to give rise to a language policy charter. And we are delighted to take part in these historic firsts. Historic firsts, which for the first time, with the birth of the consortia of European universities, have given university institutions time to reflect further on these issues by inviting specialists, as well as teachers and researchers who are aware of the results of their reflections in relation to their subject areas and in relation to their teaching practices. So once again, we'd like to thank you for your presence here today. Thank you for your participation. And we look forward to hearing the various presentations and the discussions to come. And so to each and every one of you, we hope you enjoy the symposium.